Jag heter Peter Hedenskog och du lyssnar på Changeloggen.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the Changelog, and I'm your host, Adam Stukowiak. This is episode 212, and today Jared and I are talking about sitespeed.io with Peter Hedenskog. Now, Peter is from Sweden, so if you listen to the intro, it sounded a little different because, you know what? We did it in Peter's native language. We talked to Peter about sitespeed.io, an open source tool helping you to analyze your web speed and performance based on best practices, as well as timing metrics. We talked about the inception of the project, where it's going, where it's been, the history, and what you can expect. We had two sponsors for today's show, Rollbar and Compose. First sponsor of the show today is our friends at Rollbar, and I talked to one of their customers, Andrew Childs, co-founder of Clubhouse.io. And Clubhouse has a JavaScript-heavy front end to their application, so tracking errors and drilling down to the root cause was a major challenge for them. And I talked to Andrew about how and why they use Rollbar. Take a listen.
You could see if you looked at our roll bar, we have just kind of a constant stream of errors coming in that we need to fix. People are leaving these windows open for weeks, and they've got all these extensions loaded, and those extensions are doing things to the page, rewriting things and rewriting stuff on the DOM, and it's like you're in a very, very hostile environment, and you can only do so much to guard against that locally when you're testing it yourself.
What do you do when bugs come in then? How do you deal with that?
Whenever we get a new bug that comes in, it goes to our Slack channel, so we're notified right away whenever we have a new bug. The page on Rollbar that has the bug information is super nicely laid out. Since they've got source map support, we can actually see exactly where in the code, even though our code is minified, we can see exactly which line is causing the issue. It does a good job of combining, like if multiple people are having the same bug, it will combine all of those into the same kind of list and gives us a good overview of how many people it's affected. If it's just a single person who's on Linux running an old version of Firefox, then we know, or if it's something that's affecting everybody.
Now be honest here, don't say this just because I'm asking you, but could you build the application and do what you're doing without Rollbar's help?
It's very safe to say that we wouldn't be where we are right now if we weren't using Rollbar.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for your time today, Andrew. I appreciate it. For the listeners out there, we have a special offer for Changelog listeners. Go to rollbar.com/changelog. Sign up. You get the Bootstrap plan for free for 90 days. Basically, that's 300,000 errors tracked totally free. Once again, rollbar.com/changelog. And now on to the show. We're back. We got a fun show about performance, Jared. Like, who doesn't love performance?
Performance matters.
Performance
I
does
love
matter.
performance. We're building a new website. We want it to be very fast, right?
How fast is it?
I don't know yet. I'm going to have to run site speed on it once we get it launched.
Speaking of site speed, sitespeed.io, we're talking to Peter, and the last name is said very differently in English as it is in Swedish. So, Peter, welcome to the show, and tell us how you say your name.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I say it Hedenskog. Peter Hedenskog.
Peter, we'll say it Hedenskog.
Hedenskog. That's what makes sense to us in English.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So, Adam, this show was brought to us by longtime Changelog listener and community member Justin Dorfman. So, shout out to Justin.
Yeah, big thanks, man. This was actually on the front page of Hacker News, which is, I think he was excited about it being there and then wanted to make sure we talked about it on the show because he's such a fan. But there's some sort of backstory to their relationship, is there not?
Yeah, it is. So Justin reached out to me a couple of years ago when I started sitespeed.io, and I met him at conferences and so on. So yeah, we met.
We met.
Yeah.
Internet friends.
He's really nice. Yeah, internet friends. Yeah, exactly.
That's good stuff.
Lots of good relationships can start with just internet friends,
I'm your friend, Jared. I'll always be your friend.
Adam and I met on the internet just a few short years ago.
How long did it take us to actually meet face to face? 2 years?
I started helping out in early 2013, and the first time we met was at Keep Ruby Weird, wasn't it? In November of 2015?
2014.
2014. So, year and a half.
Yeah, not bad. That's my shortest internet friendship prior to IRL, which was... I never say IRL, by the way. I just had to just now.
I say it. I think I'm getting you to say it.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Well, thanks for the warm fuzzies. Back to
Back to Peter. So, Peter, one we would like to show the listeners kind of like the backstory of something like this coming to be is kind of figuring out where you came from. So, help us understand what your backstory is. How did you get into programming?
Yeah, so when I was young, I was really, really lucky because my parents bought me a Commodore 64. I really wanted it, and I got it, and I played games, but I started to do things like basic and learning assembler, and starting like that. And I got one thing. I remember when we were going out for the summertime, and I couldn't bring my computer, but I allowed programming, so I took my pen and my paper, and when I was away from home, I used to write my programs on the paper. So when I got home, I wrote it back on the computer, and then I can run it and try it out. So that's how it started.
That's not the first time we've heard that.
Yeah. There's that Mats who didn't have any access. And so he would just read books about programming languages, but never actually was able to program because he didn't have a computer that could do those things. Is that what you're thinking of, Adam?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, similar.
Yeah, so that's how it started. But then, I got older, and kind of computers was, it wasn't so hot. So I tried out other things, and I didn't know what to do. In Sweden, when I started to study at the university, at that time you could. So I failed a lot, I tried out many, many different things, but I failed totally. I tried to be a chemical engineer, but I didn't like it. And I tried business and economics, but I didn't like that. And then finally, I started a course or like a program about human resources management. So I thought I was going on that path, but then somehow I started to do programming again. And then I did it a little at the university, and then my first work was like as a developer, on building a website in Sweden called Spray. So that's the short story of how I started.
What year was that, and what technologies were you using?
Yeah, so it was 1999. It was Java. Yeah, so I used to love Java, but now I've been working with it for so many years, and it's so many other things that are refreshing and new now. So I try to avoid it.
I hear the Java's coming back.
Yeah, but why? I don't know why.
The JVM.
Yeah, but yeah. So you have the interfaces and factories, and you need to do a lot of boilerplate code instead of focusing on what really matters. So it's so, at least for me, it's so like moving to paradise when you started doing JavaScript or Node.js to where you can actually do a couple of lines that actually do something. So yeah, I try to avoid that now.
Yeah, less verbosity, but let's all admit that JavaScript also has its pain points as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah, that's true.
All languages do. When you love a language, it's because you don't know it well enough, and then as you know it better and better, you find all the little corners of it that drive you mad. But that's kind of just life as a programmer. So, take us to site speed. So you've used, back in around the turn of the century, you were a programmer doing Java. You said you had an opportunity to switch to JavaScript and Node. Maybe take us from the point where you're doing Java at that first job to finding JavaScript and to a point where you could build something like SiteSpeed, which, as Adam said at the beginning, is a tool all about performance testing websites.
So the first version of SiteSpeed was actually built in Java.
Oh, okay.
So I worked for Spray.se. That was like a Swedish version of Yahoo at that time. So it's like a big portal. And then I worked for a small startup company for a couple of years, and doing that backend Java stuff. And I worked as a consultant for a while, and worked with a big customer that had a lot of problem on their site. So it was a customer that they used the CMS, and the people that was editing, they could change whatever. They could add extra JavaScript, extra CSS, and whatever. So the performance of the site wasn't perfect. And since like the amount of pages was enormous, we're talking millions of pages, it was hard for me as a developer to actually do something about it and find it. And the tools at that time didn't have a good way to find those pages that weren't working. So that's how I got the idea of SiteSpeed.io at that time. And that was like a simple crawler and then run a couple of performance metrics on each page.
Yeah, so give us the year context again, because and give us some of the tooling that was available, because I'm imagining you had Firebug and you had YSlow, but I'm not sure exactly which. I'm not sure what year this is.
Yeah, so this is must have been 2012, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
So we had YSlow, but YSlow wasn't perfect. But what's cool about YSlow was that you can write your own rules, because when YSlow was first created by Yahoo, so many things has changed. You have the mobile phone, and a lot of the rules isn't applicable or wasn't applicable even 2012. So I used YSlow, but I wrote my own rules and then used SiteSpeed together with YSlow. So like a SiteSpeed version of YSlow, and crawling a site, collecting a lot of URLs, and then running YSlow on them to get a metric. And then when I found a page that wasn't so good, then we could report it and start fixing it. So that was the idea. But I only started it
2012.
Yeah, but I had the idea of what I wanted to do, but I didn't have the time to do it. And then I got kids. And in Sweden, you have the fantastic thing that you can be at home for a long time. So I got twins, so I was at home for almost a year.
Listen to that, Adam.
Twins.
How long was your paternity leave, Adam?
Well, my paternity leave was not given to me by the government. It was given to me by me. And it was maybe 2 weeks. I think I even did a little bit of work during that, but I was mostly just email checking. I did not get to fully enmesh myself in the process, which did suck. And then obviously when I got back, there was a pile of stuff to do. So
you didn't get a year off to work on open source?
No year off for me. No, not at all.
So we're a little bit jealous, Peter, but you had twins, which is I'm assuming is a huge amount of work.
Yes.
So it's nice that you had a year to raise them up, and you found yourself getting a little bit bored. Is that the case?
Yeah. So in Sweden,
cut to the case.
I hope his wife's not listening to this.
Okay, not bored.
In Sweden,
rephrase that for me.
Yeah. So in Sweden, you get a little money to be home with the kids, and that's perfect. I mean, it's a wonder. It's like being home as a dad is it's fantastic. So I was home taking care of the kids, but having twins, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work when they are small. So, and you talk with the kids, and you hardly meet any people, and you don't do things with your head so much. You're only taking care of the kids. So then I tried to be up at nights and started to do SiteSpeed, because you need to have something to stimulate the brain. So I was doing that and then tried to, and that was cool, because when you're starting a project, you don't have any users, you can do whatever you want, and it's you can take it in your own pace and you can do stuff. So that was really great.
What's cool about that is I think that's where the best ideas come from, is whenever you're just sort of in your life, right? You're not sitting there at the computers thinking, what problem is best for me to solve today? I mean, sometimes that happens too, but you just kind of get into life. And before you know it, you start thinking more and more about this problem you're trying to solve, and you find new and interesting ways to take it to the next level.
Exactly. So
about taking care of small kids, I've done it. I've been through it a few times myself. It requires a lot of effort and a lot of patience and a lot of your time. But what it doesn't require is a lot of your mental, exercises. And so you have a lot of free brain time, but not a lot of free time. And so you need an outlet for that. So it sounds like, I said bored earlier, but it sounds like more like just mentally not challenged. And so this seemed like a good outlet for you, especially after you got the kids down to bed, is now you can actually take those thoughts you've been having throughout the day and you can inject them into this project, which is probably pretty fulfilling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you said the first version was Java, but I read that the first version was just a shell script. So maybe Maybe there was even a pre-version.
Yeah, so it was shell script, but the crawler was built in Java because Java was the thing I did, like doing something really fast than I did in Java at that time. But it was a bash script, so it was super simple. But it's hard to when it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. It's hard for people to help out if it's built in a shell script, I think. So that was 1.0. And then, so I was crawling a site, and you can test a couple of URLs, and you were testing like against the web performance best practice rules, YSlow, and like a modified version. But then for what's missing then was actually collect real metrics like how fast is like the first paint time or DOM content loaded time. So I built a super simple version in Java that's driving a browser in Selenium to collect those metrics. So you can use the navigation timing API and user timing API and now resource timing API to get some metrics right from the browser. So that was the aim for 2.0. And then I got help from my friend Tobias that I worked with at the previous company. So I had an idea of what it would be like, and I did a rough version, and then he could make it better, like making a good structure. And what's cool about it is I did a rewrite, or we did rewrite the whole code to Node.js. And then I also did like the first version, and then he did a more structured version. So it's good. I think we work good together because he got the structure, and I can like have the ideas and like do the first version, and then he can help out and doing stuff in a really good way.
That's interesting. It's always nice to have a partner in crime, especially when you're doing open source. And 2012, we're many years past that, so your paternity leave has been over for a while. And at a certain point, that time becomes so precious, and you need help. And maybe give us the story. Give me his name again. What was his name?
Tobias Hedenskog.
Tobias. So shout out to him for all the work he's put in over the years as well. Maybe give us that story of like how you got him involved into it, because what a lot of people with open source projects have is not very much help. And sometimes all you need is somebody else, not just to report a bug or, to do a pull request, but to actually like come alongside you and be, a team on something, especially ambitious projects. So it might be helpful for our listeners and for us as well to hear, how'd you get him, so into it and that story. And then after that, we'll cut out for our first break.
Yeah. So first of all, I think like I've been working mostly at nights, and that works perfect when you are not at work. So, but when I was working and I did fixing things and doing stuff at nights, the code quality isn't like perfect, at least, or it
Right.
isn't so good. But at least I solved the problems. I can do a new release and fix the bugs for users. So that's good. But like the quality was really low at that time. And so that's good, like having people that can help you out, and like we can share things. And Tobias and me, we worked together, but we did actually. So he was working for he was tech lead or like something like that for a customer, and then he was moving on to other stuff, and I was taking over that customer, and if you get a friend and you get like the perfect match. And then when I showed him Sitespeed.io, and he started to help out with a couple of things, and he's also really interested in performance, and yeah. So it's more of like on a friend's basis. I think we have a good match, and then, but it's hard. He also have 2 kids, so it's hard to find the time.
Yeah. Real quick before the break, one last question. You also, just to give a little bit more context around you, Peter, as you work for Wikimedia on the performance team. You also call yourself a web performance geek. You are one of the organizers of the Stockholm Web Performance Meetup Group, which has over 600 members. That's pretty cool. Why is performance, and you're going to be preaching to the crowd a little bit here, but tell us anyways, Why is performance so important, and why is it something that you dedicate all this of your free time to, helping other people improve their site speed? What, for you personally, why do you think performance is such a big deal?
Yeah, for me, it's so I get really annoyed when things are slow. So especially on mobile, and when you want to find the information and you want to do stuff, and things aren't happening, it makes me really angry. So that annoys me. And you want to do things fast. You maybe want to find something, or you need help. Yeah, slow things really annoys me actually. So I don't know if you guys feel the same.
What kind of car you drive?
I don't drive a car.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
What kind of bike do you ride?
So I run.
I run.
Do you run fast or slow?
Yeah, okay, quite fast.
That's funny. I figured we could judge your statement there based on your car, but I was way wrong.
Yeah. Backfire.
It's Forrest Gump on you, just running.
Yeah, he was running. All right, I think that's a good time to take our first break. And when we get back, we're going to dive more into site speed. We want to learn not just what it does. We know that it helps you judge the performance of your site, not across just a single page, but crawling an entire website, which was kind of the original reason why Peter wanted to create it. He could use YSlow on a single page, but when you want to automate that, you want to crawl a whole site, he needs something more. We want to talk about what it measures, how it measures it, and get into some of the nitty-gritty details of how sitespeed.io works. So we'll talk about all that after this break.
Production-ready, cloud-hosted databases. That's what Compose is all about. Compose.com. Check them out. Pick your flavor: MongoDB, Elasticsearch, RethinkDB, Redis, Postgres, SED, or RabbitMQ. And today we focused on Redis. I talked to Sean Davis deeply about why Compose, but specifically why Redis on Compose. Take a listen.
The core benefit of using Redis on Compose is not necessarily just using Redis on Compose. It's the fact that we handle all the administrative side of things for you. Backups are automatic. You don't need to code them yourselves. We handle auto scaling, so you don't have to worry about your instance running out of resources. And we properly configure it so it stays up and running. On top of that, we offer a suite of tools that makes just hosting it that much easier. The fact that you can use Redis in the same environment and using the same UI as you do any other databases that are hosted by Compose makes it that much easier. If something goes down, we're fixing it, not you. Things happen. Maybe there's a bug in Redis, or maybe there's a failover that just didn't happen the way it should have due to a bug in Sentinel. We're there to discover and debug those issues, not you. You focus on your product, not on administrating your database.
All right, for our listeners out there ready to get started, they got a database out there already and they want to give Redis on Compose a try. What's the process?
We have an import tool. This allows users to simply enter in a remote Redis URL. And what we'll do is actually attach to that remote cluster as a slave, sync everything over, and break off the connection, and you have your data.
So if you're ready to get started, check out compose.com. Our listeners get 60 days free. Learn more at compose.com. And when you're ready to sign up, use our special URL, compose.com/changelog. That'll get you 60 days free on Compose. Now we're back with Peter Hedenskog, and we're talking about performance because who doesn't love performance? But, Peter, it come to me that it would make sense to have something like this as a web service versus some sort of NPM module you can install, which is great. We love that version. And I'm just thinking, why not make this a web service? Why not give the people out there, since it's so important to you, the choice to say, okay, well, here's 4 or 5 pages that are really important to me. Let's track those pages' performance, and if they're not performing well, alert me. Yeah, I guess take us through the idea of this site speed and where it's at and why it's not a service like that.
Yeah, let's start with the first. So I built a version like that that you could use. So I got funded by the Swedish Internet Foundation to build that. So I could take 3 months off from work to build it, and I built it, and it was working fine, and it still works fine. But having something online, it takes so much time to keep it up and running, and taking care of different instances, and it was so much work. So I closed it down now to be able to focus on ORM 4.0 to make sure that it's going to be released. So
right.
Yeah. Because it's having something online like that,
So you think the efforts on the hosted version was premature then? Like it's possible, it's just hard right now because the actual tool itself isn't evolved well enough?
Yeah. So, I mean, to like, if you're working at a company and you need to, you really care about performance, you should host your own version because you want to dump the data into something else and you want to make the graphs and you make sure that you can get the alerts when you want it and so on. So an online version wouldn't help you with that. But an online version is more of making it easy for users that just want to try it out. But still, it was too much work for me, so I couldn't keep it up.
So I guess maybe now would be a good time to really break it down. What actually is sitespeed.io? Is it a tool? Is it a website? We know it's open source, obviously, but what is it? Break it down for us.
Yeah, can I start with a new version because the new version is really cool?
Please do.
Can you release it before this show goes live?
Yeah, probably. So we released.
He likes things fast, you know.
Yeah,
we released the alpha version or like an early alpha, and the beta is going in a couple of weeks. If we are really, let's see. I don't know. So it's vacation town now in Sweden. So
does that mean you get more work done or less work done on SiteSpeed?
It depends. I don't know.
Version 3 is the current, quote unquote production version. Version 4.0, that's the one that you're referring to, which is currently like a canary build that you can get. But just so everybody's clear, the features that you're talking about now, we're going to talk all about 4.0, which is the near future, right?
Yes, exactly. Because the 3.0, it was like a big blob. In 4.0, it's, and when I say we, I mean me, Tobias, and also Jonathan Lee also helps out. And he's a team member now, so we have 3 team members, so that's perfect, and we are looking for more. So if anyone wants to join, you can just hit me on Twitter.
Nice.
So we had a big blob, and we were using Wislow. Wislow, as I said before, the rules aren't applicable nowadays. So we want to change that. And in the old version, we were using Phantom.js. Phantom.js is a lovely tool, that's perfect, but it's not a real browser. So we want to make sure that we were using a real browser to collect the metrics, because now with HTTP2, you need to have to make sure that your tool can handle it, because Phantom.js will not support HTTP2 and so on. So the thing we wanted to do is to split it into multiple different tools instead, so people can build their own tools on top of that, and we can build SiteSpeed on top on our tools. So the first tool now is the coach, and the coach helps you and gives you advice on what you can do better performance-wise. So the coach knows a lot of things, and the coach is like the new Wislow, but the coach will never give you a false advice. The coach will say, "Oh, I see something is fishy here. Maybe you should look into it." So you still is in the driving seats to make sure that it's okay, because like Wislow, it was rules, and rules are often made to be broken, right? Because you cannot find rules that are like perfect, because you have desktop and you have mobile phones and you have slow connections and fast connections and so on. Mm-hmm. But the coach knows all about that. So the coach is more of, it will give you advice. So we are removing Wislow and using the coach instead. So that's kind of cool, I think. And the coach
how would you go about? So the coach is a project that you all started for this version 4.0, but like you said, these are all kind of their own modules. So is this just a separate NPM package, or is this a browser plugin? How do you use the coach by itself if you wanted to?
Yeah, so it's an NPM package, and it's also a browser plugin in Chrome that you can use. And what it does, it executes some JavaScript inside the browser to check and collect metrics and see how the site or the page is built. And then it uses a HAR file, a file that describes how different assets are loaded in the browser and the different timings, and analyze that and give back some feedback to the user.
Okay.
So
very cool. So go on. What other modules or what other sections are there for the new version?
Yeah, that's the one. Like the cool thing, because that one you can use a standalone. You can build a bookmarklet, and you can build a plugin for Firefox, and so you can run it standalone and get the feedback for a page. But that's one thing. The other fun thing is like page X-ray, because the hard file format today, the format that describes how different assets are downloaded by the browser, is quite hard to work with. It's not like a good JSON format. So we try to like convert it to a format that everyone can understand, and more telling you more about what the page is built upon, like how many JavaScripts and how many CSS files and so on. So that's one thing, page X-ray. And the third thing that we were actually using in 3.0 also is browser time. And browser time is the thing that Tobias has been working the most on. And that is, it drives a browser. So it uses Selenium to start Firefox or Chrome and execute some JavaScript to collect some metrics. Browser time was originally focused on just collecting timing metrics, like timings from the navigation timing API. But now it's just execute JavaScript. So it's a JavaScript runner inside the browser. And then take the metrics back, and you can say, test this page 5 times and give me the median metric of the DOM content loaded time, for example. So it collects a lot of metrics. And then on top of that, it's site speed. And site speed, you have the crawler, you can send the data to Graphite and soon InfluxDB. You have your own performance budget, so you can run it in your build tool, so we can check your site on the way out to see, okay, we can break the build, for example, if you have if the site is too slow, or you have like a massive amount of JavaScript, or whatever kind of rules you set up.
Well, that's really cool. Use it almost as part of like a test suite, or like you said, like a pre-build. It's like after your build, but before your deploy, you can even integrate it with your CI or something.
Yeah,
exactly. So it's outputs tap or JUnit XML.
Is this? I mean, it seems like that should be out there already. Like, performance should be part of testing. Is this? I mean, is there anything out there like it at all now?
Yeah. So you know about there's one super great tool, and that's Web Page Test. If you tried it, maybe.
Web page test?
Web Page Test, webpagetest.org. So webpagetest.org is built by Pat, like a super great guy that now works on Google, but he started the project when he was working on AOL. And that tool is like amazing. It's really, really good. It's open source. It runs on Windows. And that's the Web Page Test is a service, so you use it online.
Right.
And then there's built tools upon it that you can use, like you can have an NPM module that collects the data. But SiteSpeed actually also uses Web Page Tests. So you can run Web Page Test with SiteSpeed, and SiteSpeed drives Web Page Test, collects the metrics for Web Page Test, and then dumps the data to Graphite or whatever you want, or run the tests like in your continuous integration. So I forgot to mention that SiteSpeed also wraps Web Page Test. So if you are like having Web Page Test instances, you can drive it with SiteSpeed IO to collect the metrics. And because what's cool about Web Page Test is that you can also collect metrics from real mobile phones. You can do that in SiteSpeed 4.0 also, but only Android phones. So Web Page Test you can drive an iPhone. So that's really cool to collect metrics from real phones. So that's why we integrated Web Page Test also to be able to use it and collect the metrics. And so if you use SiteSpeed, you can run it standalone, or you can use it with Web Page Test and have the same flow, like break the builds on specific metrics or dump the data where you want it and create the graphs in Grafana.
That's the part I'm talking about. If there's that before, like breaking the builds, part of the CI process, because that's the interesting piece there. To me, I mean, it's all interesting, of course, but to testing not only just if a something renders properly, based on database knowledge, but also the fact that like the site speed isn't quite the same way it should be, and breaking based on performance. That seems new and interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's been a couple of different small projects. So you can run standalone with WebPageTest and then site speed, and then I think so you actually need to use it with real browsers. So you need to have site speed or WebPageTest. There's a couple of other tools that use Phantom.js, and that's cool, but you cannot get like the same timing metrics that will be okay if you use that. But but I agree. So that's really like the main how you should use site speed or where you should use it. Either you can use it on testing your code on the way out, so you can make sure that you are not introducing regression on your performance, and then you can use it to monitoring your site. So you can run it on production and collect the metrics and create graphs and alerts if you see something that happens. Because I mean, some sites, you have a CMS and you have people that can do whatever they want, and it's good to be able to spot that. Or you have ads and you want to make sure that they run fast and so on.
So let's talk about a performance budget. Is this something where everybody gets together and decides, 300 milliseconds is good for us in terms of a certain threshold of our page loading? I know when we talk about when a web page loads, you have a lot of different, a lot of different things that could mean. You have time to first paint, you have, DOM ready, you have completely loaded, you have all these different things. So maybe tell us how you'd go about setting a performance budget to break a build, and then, how granular you can be with those types of rules that you're giving it.
Yeah, so in the old version, and I think most of the tools I've seen has done it like you can set up a hard budget. So you say, DOM content loading need to happen within 1000 milliseconds, or you can set up to break the build if your amount of transfer size of the JavaScript is like 200 kilobytes or whatever. And that's good in a way, but what we are aiming for in the new version is that you can catch regression. So instead of setting like a hard limit, you can see, okay, we are doing 10% slower than yesterday, or 10% than the last build, or we are having 10% bigger JavaScript files. So it's better to like compare with the past instead, because it's to have those limits works in some cases. But to be able to find stuff, it's good to like have comparing and find regression, I think. So that will be part of the new version, to make it easier for people. Because how can you decide, like, you set a limit and it's like, who knows if it's like the right limit or not? It's better to make sure that you don't catch regressions, I think. Or that you can catch regressions, of course.
So previously used Phantom.js, and recent news around Chrome Dev Tools is this new headless version of Chromium, right? Can't remember what it's called. Just called headless? I don't know, but it's upcoming. And I assume that's something that will affect you, perhaps in a good way and perhaps in a bad way. What's your reaction to that news that the Chrome team is going to have this headless version available upcoming soon?
Yeah, I think it's really cool. So I guess it will like kill Phantom.js and other things. So, but that's I think it's good because it's been missing, right? So that will be good for SiteSpeed.io. We can use it, and I mean, but what's important for me is that we at least support 2 different browsers. So we have today we have Chrome and Firefox. We want to be able to use Opera. So we can test on mobile phones and test with Opera, because Opera is really big in Africa, and we want to be able to test that. And we want to move on when Safari, the rumor says that Safari 10 will be able to be driven with the WebDriver, so then we can use Selenium. And then in the future, maybe we can use, we can also drive Safari on iOS. So that would be really cool. So we will always try to have like a couple of browsers. But I think Chromium, headless Chromium is good. And it will be exciting to see what people can build up and use it, how they can use it.
Let's talk about who's using it, because the features that you're delivering in the open source world, I mean, these are things that you probably have killed a few potential startups that would like to offer this as a paid service, and so much value provided in the open source. That's what we love about it. You mentioned in a recent blog post, it's kind of like an annual review, some of your successes that you've had throughout its 3 years, or this was 2015 review, and just the number of downloads that you were getting, the surprise of that. You had set a goal in 2015 for 25,000 downloads. And at the end of the year, you found it was about 141,000 downloads, which is, almost, well, it's not quite an order of magnitude. It's definitely the new level of magnitude, but anyways, it's quite a bit more. And who's using it that you know of, big players or small players, or ones that are interesting to you?
Yeah, so I haven't. I know quite many that uses it, but I haven't. I don't know if I can say the names actually, because I haven't okayed with them.
Wow,
so
that's no fun.
Yeah, I know. But there's a lot of people using it, and I mean, what's cool about it is that we have a Docker version. So last year when we did try to see how many downloads we had like almost 40,000 Docker downloads. And that's cool, because the Docker downloads, then you get Firefox and Chrome on the same time. So you have like a perfect setup. And we also have like a Graphite version. So, Graphite, where you can store your time series data. We have like our own version, but you can use whatever version you have. But you have a Docker container, and that container had 14,000 downloads, and that's cool, because then you only have like one version. You have it up and running, and you don't need to upgrade it. So that's a good amount of people that actually run it and take care, actually look at the data and use it as like the most getting the most out of the tool, I think. So that's cool. I know has been a couple of companies that has talked about SiteSpeed at least. So Marks and Spencer in UK, it's like a shopping site, has been using it. So because they have talked about it in a conference talk, so I think I can mention them.
So for those out there that are slight fans of Docker, maybe they've dabbled with it here and there, but what's the importance of having this as Docker images? Like, walk us through how someone would pull one of these images and actually make use of it.
To get something up and running, and you want to monitor the performance of your site, you want to have SiteSpeed, and you run SiteSpeed and you run it maybe every 5 minutes or 10 minutes or once a day, or you can set it up in your Chrome tab or whatever tool you have. And to run SiteSpeed, you need to have SiteSpeed and you need to have a browser. And if you download the Docker container, you get an exact version of the browser, because that's good, because browsers are updating themselves all the time, and to make sure that SiteSpeed is working correctly, we release it with specific browser versions. So, for example, it has happened in the past that Chrome and Firefox has done a new release, and it's broken with Selenium and everything's broken. But if you use the Docker containers, you have a specific version and it will work fine. So you have a Docker container for SiteSpeed, and then you can have a Docker container for Graphite, where you store the data, and a Docker container for Grafana, where you make the graphs.
And so you're maintaining all these different all these containers for Docker to make sure they work with the current version of SiteSpeed or the current version of the browsers that work.
Yeah. So actually, we have only a SiteSpeed. In the new version, we'll have a SiteSpeed container with specific browser versions. So the other ones is the ones that you download, the official ones. So you just do Docker pull Graphite, Docker pull Grafana, and you get that one. And you set it up. But so right now in the 3.0 3.x version, it is some hacking. You need to configure things. You need to set up Graphite with Grafana, and we are aiming for making sure that you can like run one command and everything is up and running. So it's more easier to get things up and running.
And so version 4 is making that easier?
Yes.
It's always
so
good.
one thing, yeah. So now, it's I don't know. You need to follow a couple of you need to do a couple of things, and if you do things manually, things will stop to work. So it's good to try to automate everything. So yeah.
We're hitting our next break, but one thing we wanted to kind of follow up on, which, Jared, this is just an eyeball for us. But we're not really sure if your work on site speed got you your position at Wikimedia, but we'd love to learn more about that process for you, and also the background of what's going on at Wikimedia Foundation and all that stuff. So let's talk about that on the other side of this break. For those of you out there who are super fans, and I mean people who care about this show, listen every single week, care that we stay on the air, we want to invite you to join the membership community for just $20 a year, and we'll give you an all-access pass to everything we do, access to our members-only Slack room, exclusive discounts from our partners, 50% off in the Changelog store, and of course, you support us so we can support open source. Head to changelog.com/membership to learn more, and we appreciate your support.
All right, we are back with Peter Hedenskog talking about all things sitespeed.io. And next up, we're going to talk about his role on the performance team at Wikimedia/Wikipedia. But first, Peter, you wanted to give a shout out to somebody who's been working on a special integration with your new coach tool.
Yeah, so I want to thank Matthew Harrison-Jones that built the Chrome extension for the coach. That's really cool. And he has also, after that, he has started doing things for sitespeed.io. So that's really, really cool. People that start doing one thing and then do more things to the project. So I really like that. So thanks.
We'll link up that Chrome extension in the show notes. So you've had this reputation since 2012. You've been building site speed, and you've been meeting people who are also performance geeks, as you call yourself. 10 months ago, you started at Wikimedia on the performance team. So first, we're interested if your work with site speed perhaps gave you a shoe-in with Wikimedia. And then secondly, want to hear about what it is that you do there, if site speed's being used by the company, and just any sort of behind the scenes at Wikimedia that you can give us.
I've been working with sitespeed.io for quite a while, or at least it seems so. And one thing when I applied for a position at the Wikimedia Foundation, and they were looking to add more people to the performance team, and at the Wikimedia Foundation, the most important thing, or one of the most important thing as a developer, is that every line of code you write is open source. So they are really looking into other. When you start at the foundation, it's a good thing that you have been working on open source before. And since I've been working on sitespeed.io, that was a really cool thing, I think. But you need to ask the people that hired me. But I think that it was a good way in, because you have something to show, and we discussed this, and you can show what you have done. So I think that's really good.
So give us a little bit of the insight, your day to day. What do you do as a member of the performance team? This is one of the. Wikipedia is at number 7. I don't know. It's in the top 10 of websites on the entire internet. So would love to hear what your day to day is like working there. Yeah.
So we are 5 members of the team. It's Ori, Timo, Gilles, Aaron, and me. And we do different, it's a big site, and we have different specialties. So a day for me, I work on web page test, the other tool, not sitespeed.io, that we use to measure performance. So we have been working on trying to do synthetic testing, where we test parts of the site or a couple of pages to make sure to see if we can find regressions or performance regressions. So I built some open source tool around that to measure the sites, and then I'm focusing on an extension to the MediaWiki, helping users to know if an article page on Wikipedia can be better for performance. give a hint on what you can do and change things to make it faster. Because what's really cool about Wikimedia and Wikipedia is that we have a lot of users that really cares, and they create the content and they do fantastic things. And if we as performance engineers can help them to make the site faster, that's the best thing. Because okay, we have a couple of engineers, but like there's a really big site, and like we have really big amount of users, and if we can give them the tools to make the site faster, that's like the best things, because then we empowering them to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I've been working on. Yeah, the last month.
One of the major ways to increase performance nowadays, it's still, I mean, it's out there in production, but it's still kind of on the edge, is implementing HTTP2. Is that something that Wikimedia Foundation that you guys have done or are interested in?
Yeah, we have switched to HTTP2.
The
thing was, we did the switch, I don't remember now, could it be a month? So, you know that Chrome stopped supporting Speedy?
Right.
We were using, we moved to HTTPS, I don't remember now, a while ago, quite long ago. And then we were using Speedy because we need to have Speedy to make it fast, or quite fast. Mm-hmm. And then when Chrome was shutting down Speedy, I mean, we need to move on. So then we switched to HTTP2.
Any stories from that? Was it easy? Did it take a long time? Were there
no, I don't work on
bumps in the road?
Yeah, so I haven't been working on that. What was important for us was to make sure that we did the switch when like we had the same amount of users that was using HTTP2 as was using Speedy. So we didn't do the switch too early. So people are losing on performance. But I haven't been working on that, so I have no story on that. Awesome. But it's cool because it's, I mean, HTTP is the future, but still it will not solve everything because it's still problematic. So you need to know what you're doing, and you need to make sure, because and still, I mean, also the service that supports HTTP2 have a lot of things to do to make sure that you can prioritize content and make sure that the prioritizing is right, so the browser can start to render the content as early as possible.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's really early in HTTP2 life. So there's a lot of things that can be done, I think.
So one last question, and then we're going to talk about how people can get involved and help out with sitespeed.io. But as a performance geek, give us this. If you had to talk to a total beginner or an outsider with regards to website performance, and you had to give 3 tips, but you can only give 3, you can't give 4. 3 tips, low-hanging fruit. What should I be doing to make sure that my website is fast? What were the 3 things that you'd tell that person?
That would be, first, I would make sure that the cache headers are set so that assets are cached, so the browser don't ask for the same asset over and over again. So for example, if you hit one page and then go to the next page and use the same JavaScript and the same CSS, the browser doesn't need to download it. That's really important, because if you don't do the request, then it will be much faster. So that's really good. The other one thing that are still, even with HTTP2, probably like really important, is that inlining CSS. And when I started, a long time ago, inlining CSS inside the HTML was like the most ugliest thing you can do, right? Because you need to have some structure and you need to have the files. But on mobile, on a really slow connection, you want to make sure that the browser can start to render things really early. So you want to inline the critical CSS that can make sure that you can start rendering the page. So that's really cool. But still, that one is like maybe not for a beginner, because it's a little bit hard to make, but it's really cool because it's important.
I was gonna say, with that one, you have to decide what's critical and what's not, because you're not saying you don't inline all your CSS. It's just the critical stuff, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah, above the fold, so to speak. I saw something recently about that, but When you say inline, do you mean in the head of the document, or do you mean actually in line in the elements as a style attribute?
That's a style. Yeah. So so you do it in the head, right? So you can you add the style instead of like doing the request, you just inline it inside of head. So the browser, when it's finished with the head, can start rendering the page because it's been setting up the CSS object structure.
Gotcha.
Or you could be old school and just code it that way from the start.
Yes, of course.
Love that.
All right, what's your number 3 tip here?
Number 3. Let me think about that. Yeah, so number 3 would be for me to make sure that you only deliver things that you are using, because a lot of sites deliver everything. You have 10, 20, 30 different JavaScript libraries and it's delivered to the browser, and maybe you use like 1% of it. And that's, on a desktop computer, like a fast computer, that doesn't matter. But when you are on a mobile phone and you're on a slow connection and you have a limited CPU, a lot of JavaScript will make your phone slower. So trying to minimize, or at least make sure that you're using the things that you send to the browser. I think that's important.
Yeah, a follow-up to Jared's question on those last two, since the first one was definitely closer to beginner. The second two seem a bit more...
second two are giving me imposter syndrome.
Yeah, definitely. Because I'm thinking like, okay, what's the fastest, if those are focused on beginners or just in general 3 core things you can do, what are ways to identify what, it seems like you say to send a minimal amount of HTML, CSS, JavaScript on the pipe to the browser, regardless if it's mobile or desktop. But how do you define that for one? And then 2, the inlining the CSS, like you said, to focus on what's what the browser needs to render first. How does one go about doing that? What do you recommend for that?
Yeah, so you can use tools. So there's tools where you actually can get the CSS that are rendered. I don't have it in my head, but you're right. So maybe this recommendations is more for experienced users. I would say the first one, try to minimize the number of requests. Setting the cache headers is perfect because that's quite easy. And then it would be to make sure that you are compressing all the text that you send. So the HTML, the CSS, and JavaScript is compressed. Because if you're compressing it and you're sending it over a line, it will be much faster. So that would be number 2. And then I would also try to focus on a simpler number 3. And that would be, but still, if you're a developer, you need to make sure that what you are only using the things that
matter.
Your download. Yeah, exactly. Because
sure.
That's in your it should be in your blood to make sure that,
I don't think when we say beginner, we mean somebody who's never built the web before. I think when we say beginner, maybe it's beginner for web performance. Someone who's just, slinging CSS, JavaScript everywhere, and they're like, there's such thing as performance. And then maybe you're like, well, hey, you should do caching. You should be concerned about inlining CSS, for example, or only sending down to the browser what you need for that particular page, not the JavaScript and CSS for 10 other pages.
Yeah.
Just the page you're actually trying to render.
Yeah. So then I would say to start measuring.
Yeah.
That would be actually number 1. Because, if you don't measure, you don't know. So it could be that you are super fast. And why should you spend time on trying to do things better if you are fast already, right? So start measuring would be the first then.
I love that.
For beginners and for experienced. Start measuring. That's the best thing.
Start measuring.
I love that. We worked our way around to you promoting your tool. You wouldn't be very good in Silicon Valley. You got to start with the promotion of the tool and then go from there. But
that's right.
That's absolutely true. Got to measure before you can make wise decisions.
Well, on the note of promotion, let's promote something that's pretty important, which is help. You have a doc on the repo that I actually sent a pull request to while we were here on the show, which is the best ways to help. And money was at the very bottom, which, it's not always all about money, but obviously, as you said before, you've got You got a wife, you got twins, you got a family, you got things going on, you got 2 team members that are helping you out. So obviously, this is an important mission and a mission that has more and more people jumping on board. So what's the best way for the listening audience to focus on helping, whether it's joining the team, whether it's contributing knowledge, whether it's advocating for support? How can people listening to this show take action today and step in and help out in whatever way?
Yeah, perfect. So actually, money is not important to me, but I will start with other things first. If you are a developer and doing stuff and you like site speed, I think doing a pull request, that's perfect. And we've been working now to make it easier to tag issues, so you know where you can start and what you can take on and so on. But it's always best to like create an issue and talk to us first, so we can guide you through and discuss what you can do. But then making the documentation better, because right now we are lacking a lot of things, and helping us writing tests, because part of the tools have really good tests today, but parts we don't have so good tests. So writing tests and writing documentation, that's like perfect, or helping us where we have done something wrong, like in the docs, that's perfect. But so there's a lot of companies working or using SiteSpeed.io, and I mean, I'm so blessed because I live in Sweden. I have kids. I have a partner. I work. I mean, I don't need money. But if you're using SiteSpeed.io, I would love you to instead like trying to help people that are really suffering, like people in Syria, and trying to support the Red Cross and doing stuff like that instead, because there's a lot of people in the world that really needs money, and you don't have to spend it on me or the people that works on SiteSpeed.io, because we are really blessed, because we live we have money that we can take care of our families. It's better to help people that really needs it.
On the note of, I guess not so much exactly money, but maybe partnerships. Have you pursued, or are you open to partnerships with CI services out there? Earlier in the show, we talked about automation. There's obviously different ways you can integrate this into various either open source things like Travis, for example, or even paid services like sponsors of this show, CodeShip, for example. What's your position there in terms of partnerships? And it might not be money, but it might be indirect support, so to speak.
Yeah, so we use tools today. We use Travis, for example. So that in a way, Travis is supporting us, because we use Travis to check our bills. We are looking for, it's important for us that getting support from, I would love to get some support, but it would not be for, it's important that they don't try to influence the product. So making sure, I don't know if I had a good answer. We have been looking, but we are most looking into maybe a foundation to help us to make sure that we don't want to have a company supporting us.
That makes sense.
I don't know. Yeah,
because no ties, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. Because
you want to be agnostic in terms of how you conduct your business, and maybe it's kind of like politics. Could sway the vote, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
You don't want nobody lobbying you.
No.
That's good. That's good. It's good to know that about a person's character, for one, and also a project's character to kind of remain, flat in that regard, so to speak. Let's ask a favorite around here, because we always love to hear about somebody's hero. So we talked about where you came from. We talked about your Commodore 64. We even see a picture of you pushing your twins with a computer on it. So we know that you love what you do, and somebody must have gotten you to love what you do. Who's your influencer? Who's your hero that got you where you're at? That you look up to.
I've been thinking a lot about that, and I think so. It seems like almost everyone have a hero, right? But I think my hero is like the everyday programmer. You go to work, you do your time, you build your stuff, and maybe it's not a cool product, but you do your time. You try to solve your problems, and like I really like I really like the everyday programmer.
Yeah.
Was there an open source side to that question? The everyday programmer who also loves open source, or just in general? I mean, because on your about page, you say you're such a huge fan of open source. Like, that is the way forward. That's why I asked that.
No, I think like being a developer or programmer at work and like focusing on your problems. I think it's so cool that that's how the world look like today. You don't have to care about. I care about a lot about open source, but I mean, do your stuff at work. I think that's so. Yeah, it's cool. Really cool.
In Washington D.C., we have a monument to the the unknown soldier.
That's right.
That one, Adam.
Yeah.
I always liked that sentiment. I thought it was very poignant. It's basically, isn't it a tomb, I think, or a grave site of some unknown soldier who died at war, and we don't know who it is, but we honor that person.
Yeah, exactly. It's an unidentified soldier. I believe it might have even been a Marine, and it's guarded 24/7, 7 days a week by diehard Marines. I think it's only Marines who guard it. I could be wrong, but it's a very prestigious kind of thing that they guard that tomb, and they're very diligent about how they march around it. Very specific, and it's a big deal.
Yeah, just reminded me of that. The everyday programmer, as a hero. That's
true. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the best answers to that question, because it's not somebody in particular. It could be you, the listener, right now. It could be the person listening to this thinking, I'm Peter's hero, and that's awesome. So congrats. It could be even me, Jared. Who knows, right?
We'll never know.
It could be you, Jared.
Now we're going to get on. Is it Serpico? I'm Serpico. No. What's that movie?
I'm Serpico.
That's right. Well, we need to close the show before I dive us into movie quotes.
Yes. That's a bad land. We've been there before. But Peter, one last thing for you. Any closing thoughts for you? Any advice you want to share with the open source world? This is a chance for you to kind of put one last thing out there before we close out.
I think making something really easy to use. Like, so if I want to help out in an open source project and it doesn't work, or like it's like the README is quite complicated, it scares me off. And I mean, and that's why I think, like, for example, I've seen the Firefox developer tools. They have made a new version that's where you can actually just clone the repository, and then you can hook it up with Firefox nightly, and it's up and running, and you can hack on it. And I think building tools that are easy to get up and running, I really like that. And I think that's a good thing that you should focus on.
Keep things simple. There's an acronym, KISS, keep it simple. Silly. I don't like the other version of that. People say that. They say...
I was actually just thinking that exact same word. I was like, silly.
Yeah, silly. I mean, who wants to say the other one? I mean, no one's stupid out there. There's no stupid questions. There's no stupid answers. It's the curiosity that moves things forward.
There are silly questions.
There are silly questions, and sometimes those are fun questions. Who knows, right?
Sometimes we ask those questions.
Yes, again, we were on a tangent. Peter, it was awesome having you, man. It was great to hear about your history, where you came from. It's certainly interesting to hear how important this mission is, and obviously the things you do at Wikimedia Foundation, and kind of closing that loop for you with Justin. And Justin, thank you for obviously being a fan of the show and teeing up this question on Ping. Jared, on that note, we had a tweet that was actually a response to somebody else but mentioned us, and they said that we seem to only do shows that are recommendations on Ping. Is that true? Do we only do shows that are recommendations?
No,
we don't, right? We
every once in a while we'll line a show up ourselves.
We're somewhat smart. We can. Well, the point is that we do really appreciate and really love an interactive audience, and so that's just a way to open up and say we have our ideas for fun shows too, but we always are open to hear you, the listeners' thoughts, and that's where we have github.com/thechangelog/ping. There's issues there. Put one down if you've got somebody that's an influencer to use, a show you want us to do, or pitch us an idea or a new project. We have Changelog Weekly that goes out every single week. Those are ways you can interact with us. That's our open inbox, so to speak. We're an open organization by and large, so that's just a way to say we have fun shows. We line up ourselves, but we love it whenever you tell us about things that are interesting to you. So, Peter, that's it for this show, man. It's been a blast having you. Where can people find you at? Where are you at on Twitter? Where are you at on GitHub? But we'll link these up in the show notes, of course. But what's your handles there?
Yeah, on GitHub it's Soul Galore, and on Twitter it's Solislav.
Okay.
So it's different, yeah.
Being sneaky, I see.
Yeah.
Well, listeners, we'll link that up in the show notes. So find the show notes for this show. And fellows, with that, let's call this show done and say goodbye.
Goodbye. Thanks, Peter. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.